All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you guys see and hear me right now? If you can't, then that's kind of a dumb question to ask. Yes, okay. How are you guys doing today? Are you guys excited? I'm excited. Yes, Ibn Murrah, mashallah, the time traveler. I don't know how he accomplished that, but mashallah, he is a part of us. He's one of us. Kalam argument will destroy him concerning God. Islamic explanation about reality will destroy him concerning reality. MashaAllah. Yeah, that is true. That is true. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Nafil Habibi, how you doing, man? Bagfan, can you say my name? Muhammad? Alhamdulillah, ya Rab. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How are you? Just gonna story this, inshallah, saying that we are live. So in about 9 minutes, I'll send him the link, inshallah. 8 minutes. Wa alaikum salam. What heated debate? The one that's about to take place. You'll see. Colluming in this debate. Colluming? What do you mean by colluming? Inshallah khair. All good, all victory is from Allah. As long as we do our due diligence for the sake of Allah, inshallah khair. Okay, Bismillah. Ameen ya Rab, Ameen. So it's basically on the topic of God. I'm going to be demonstrating how God does exist and how we know he exists, and he's going to try and refute it. Will he be able to? Probably not. Honestly, probably not. But inshallah khair. Hate this dude, inshallah, you'll destroy him. Inshallah ya Rab, if Allah wills me to beat him intellectually in a debate. Alhamdulillah. The atheist has a passive repeating absurd claims. Make sure to call him out directly before he goes on tangents. Inshallah, I will. Inshallah, I will. J. Mike, the Kalam ignores actual cosmological models. The arrogance here is insane. You mean the Kalam cosmological argument? Because I'm not making the Kalam cosmological argument. Mike, I don't know his last name. Mike B. And J. Mike, if you think my arrogance is what was the word you used? Is insane, then go to Mike's channel. Go to Mike's evil twin and see the arrogance and the claims he makes about Islam. Kalam is very good. I agree. There is a bit of iffiness when it comes to existences that have a beginning having a cause, because there's some discussion about that, but I'm not using that. The argument's not based on causation. Causation could be a part of it, but it's not solely based on causation. And you guys will see, inshallah, when we start in about 6 minutes. You'll see. By the way, if the stream is a bit laggy or anything, let me know, inshallah. Contingency argument should be sufficient for this ignoramus. Let's relax with the insults, inshallah. For the sake of Allah, I think we should be respectful. Even if he isn't respectful, we can be firm. We can be firm. I can mute him if he becomes disrespectful. But let's not, let ourselves fall. Let's not let ourselves be disrespectful. Because Allah says in the Quran that the servants, the Ibadur Rahman, the servants of the most merciful, when they're basically approached by an ignorant person, they respond with peace. Salam. So let's not, be disrespectful and rude and insulting. Let's try and keep that as a minimum, inshallah. In my case, I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does. I don't see why he would like it, to be honest, to be frank. Will I be able to? Yeah, inshallah, it should be posted to the Three Muslims channel, which you're watching on now, afterwards. Hadi, assalamu alaikum. The contingency argument doesn't get you to a new. Well, how so? How does it not get you to a new that's what threw me off. Ontological category. And you'll see. And I mean, I don't want to assume you mean anything specific until I actually hear from you what you mean. So when you say it doesn't reach a new ontological category, what do you mean? It doesn't reach necessary existence? How can you demonstrate that? How can you disprove the argument? Because if the premise is true, the premises are true, and the logic is sound, the conclusion will follow. How to refute, where did that go? How to refute someone who believes in an eternal universe. An eternal universe is not an issue. Even if the universe was infinite and eternal, that doesn't make it the necessary existence, because the universe is comprised of contingent things. Now, this is an issue because you're saying the necessary existence is made up of contingent things. That doesn't make sense. It cannot be the necessary existence. And you can have something that's infinite and eternal. For example, let's say we had an eternal sun. The sun was eternal. The sun's rays would also be eternal, right? The sun's rays would also be eternal, but they're not eternal in the same way, because the sun's rays would still be dependent upon the sun. So they're not the same. The premises do not necessitate a new ontological category. It just states a cause which goes again, I think you meant against most cosmological models based outside the armchair. It's not just about causation, though. That's the thing. It's not just about causation. Can you demonstrate how you can have a world of only contingent existences? That's the question. That's the question that is begged with not the cosmological argument, the contingency argument. If you can demonstrate, even with a thought process or a thought demonstration, how you can have a world of only possible existences without it being a contradiction and fallacious, then okay. But this is the issue, because no one has brought something even close to that yet. LMAO, truth, they didn't know the PSR is couched in explanation, or that the cause and effect isn't fundamental but rather emergent. It has nothing to do with cause and effect, though. I mean, it could play a part, but it's not based on that. It's not the premise. It's not the main premise, at least. But infinites cannot be actualized in the physical world. I agree. What time is it? 3:58. I'm going to send Mike the link now, inshallah, and get him in here. And actually, I appreciate J Mike being in here. I kind of recognize the picture. I think he's Atheist Jesus or something like that on his platforms. So let me send this to Mike so we can begin, inshallah. I believe that went through. Inshallah, he should be joining us soon. Yes, I also host Talk Heathen. I hope I said that right. Talk Heathen. I'm assuming that's on your YouTube. J Mike is smart. He's very analytical. I appreciate that, honestly. I appreciate that. Knife, you're attacking a straw man. And I apologize if I don't, read certain comments. Sometimes they move too fast. Uthman ibn Farouk gave you some tips, mashallah. May Allah bless him. Have mercy on him. My comments weren't to you specifically, Rami. It was comments. That's fair. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Will you be using the argument that Muhammad Hijab uses? Contingency argument? Yes, I will. I will be. Milhan, assalamu alaikum. Put the slow mode in comments. I could do that. I don't want to play with this because I don't know exactly how to do that. Pretty sure I sent him the link. May Allah love you for loving me for his sake. Ameen. Atheists hate Jesus. Well, I mean, I don't think all of them hate him. Assalamu alaikum to everybody, to all the newcomers. I think it would be fair to have a mutual platform to have discussions like this. But I do at the same time understand why somebody wouldn't want to go on someone else's platform. Because me, in this debate, I can mute Mike. I could take him literally off the screen and then yell and go on a rant if I want to. I'm not going to do that. The only time I'll mute him is if he is actively disrespectful and interrupting me, won't let me get to my point, because that's actually a tactic people use in debate sometimes. So if he gets to that point, I'll mute him, I'll finish my point, I'll mute myself and unmute him and let him speak. Yes. Brigandy, I believe. I sent him the link. Maybe he's setting up. It's okay, you know, inshallah, more time, just chilling. That works. And during the debate, guys, I apologize if I'm not able to read all the comments. I might not even be looking at them. And since I don't have a moderator to, you know, kind of work on this stuff and to pin comments and all that, you just have to make do, inshallah. But since it's a debate, it's informal. But since it is a debate, I think you guys can't really expect anything else. Mike, I have a question for you. Do you believe Jesus existed? Not believe him as in God or anyone divine in any way, but do you believe he existed? Don't get distracted by fallacies, inshallah. May Allah grant me a clear mind. Ameen. But where is he? I know I sent him the link. I double checked. Inshallah, may Allah allow me to not fall into any traps. Ameen. Yahya, is Yahya in here? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi, Yahya. Kif halik, bro? How you doing? Jesus existed likely. Whoa. Jesus existed likely, but so did Muhammad. Doesn't make the prophets who claim true. I agree. I could right now claim to be a prophet. I exist, doesn't make it true. I agree. That wasn't my question, but I agree. But you did answer my question. He likely existed. And I appreciate how you're careful with your wording as well. Because historical truths are far from absolute facts in our eyes, because we can't actually know. Anhel, assalamu alaikum. We can't actually know if they happen as a matter of fact. It's just most likely. So I appreciate even your wording on that. Where is he? I don't know. No, I'm not debating the mic in this chat. No. Thank you, Spartan. Why don't you cite actual philosophers instead of touch butt? Touch butt? What? Like Ghazali, William Lane Craig, Plato, etc. Regurgitate their responses and comments. I don't know who that's to. J Mike, it's not identical. However, a cause could be a mode of explanation. Either way, this is an argument based on this is an argument based on contingent and necessary facts. It's based off existence. So no need for PSR. What does PSR stand for? It's an acronym. An acronym I'm not familiar with. Principle of sufficient reason. Okay. That was fast. Why is it taking forever? I don't know. I don't think I've done anything wrong. I sent him the link. What if he just doesn't show up? What if he just decides hell with it? We could just turn this into one of those live like call-in shows. I'm sure that's what J Mike does on Talk Heathen. I believe that's what he said it's called. Call him. I don't have his number. Call him live. I don't have his number though. We're talking on TikTok. Unless I go to his Instagram and call him, but I don't think that would go through. Call him live. Mike, where you at? Why are you running? I clicked one button and it threw me out of the stream. So I'm going to try not to click that again, inshallah. But call him on Instagram. I'll try. Okay, Mike Brigandi is his name. Whoever typed it before, I believe you misspelt it. Let's see this. I don't live in the UK, no. I live in Canada. Alhamdulillah. I'm going to call him. Oh, he's here. He's here. Let me add him to the screen. Hello?
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, I can hear you. How are you doing?
Is it clear? Is it like good or?
It's good. There's a little bit of background noise, but it's soothing.
Good. Okay.
So how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Is it possible to turn your phone on the side so it's landscape? Perfect.
Yeah.
So where are you at right now?
My house, my backyard.
All right. It's a very nice view. All right.
Thanks.
So I think it's only fair that we begin with meeting on common ground. I think it's a good place to start defining definitions and getting all those misconceptions out of the way. So firstly, I want to know, do you accept proper logical deduction as a, proper method or path to truth?
Yes, it can lead to truth. Yes, but logic alone without evidence, without demonstrable evidence, to me, is not as valuable as science itself, right? As demonstrable evidence.
Okay. And is there a reason specifically you would say that?
Well, anybody can come to any logical conclusion. For example, I can logically conclude that the Earth is flat without any demonstrable evidence. It might seem that it's logically the case that the Earth is flat, but it's actually not, right? So
yeah.
That's why.
Okay, I understand that line of thinking, but I myself, and this is why I wanted to get this out of the way, I wouldn't even consider that a logical deduction. I would consider that illogical and irrational, because on what premise are you saying the Earth is flat,
I can't see a curvature. All I see is flatness. It's logic. That's a logical conclusion.
I would say that's an illogical conclusion. But how about, for example...
How's that?
It's illogical because you're making yourself the measuring stick truth. I actually think, if anything, that's an issue with science, because it's based on induction, right?
Science would go, no, let's test to see whether or not the Earth is flat. Let's go out and see. Let's walk around the Earth and see if there is an edge to it. That's what science would do, right? What you're doing is going, yeah, it seems to me the Earth must be flat because I can't see an edge to it. It's logically deductive that the Earth is flat. That's what you're doing. Science is the opposite of what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm doing that. I have not done that. But this is proper logical deduction.
Okay, then what is your logical conclusion that points to God, that demonstrates that your God is even possible?
Well, I mean, possibility is different from necessity, and we'll get there. But I want to isolate and really establish these principles first. So when it comes to deduction, let's say, for example, you have 10 centimeters of space, right? And you break every centimeter down into smaller and smaller units, right? Either you can break it down infinitely, or you break it down to the smallest unit of space, which would be the Planck length, right? You cannot have an infinite regression of that. Therefore, you know that there is a smallest unit. Because if you had an infinite regression, you would have an infinite amount of space in a finite space, an infinite amount of units in a finite space.
No, there are an infinite amount of numbers between 1 and 2. Infinity does exist. There's nothing wrong with it.
Mathematically, but not physically.
Oh, well, again, infinity itself is a concept.
Yeah, but I'm saying physically. It would be impossible.
Well, it may exist physically. We don't know. We can't test to see if the universe is infinite.
I'm not talking about the universe.
Seems to be that.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the universe here.
Okay, well, infinity is a true concept, right? It's real. It does exist. And
infinity exists physically?
As far as we know, yes, it does. It could exist physically.
Could and does is very different, right? So could you give an example of something that is like physically infinite, for example?
Space itself could be infinite. The universe could be infinite.
Could be. I'm asking.
Again, I don't have any actual evidence that there is something that is infinite, but it could be possible. Based on mathematics.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And yeah, mathematically it's possible, of course. But when you say, for example, like you said, there is infinity, you have to be very clear, which is why I wanted to get this out of the way to begin with. But deduction, and this is proof that you would have to accept deduction, because even you in like the videos you made about the Quran and Islam, you use deduction. You said that scientifically we've never observed, or you didn't say this, I'm paraphrasing, but biologically humans can't live up to 150 years. Therefore, Noah, it was impossible for Noah to live 950 years.
Well, yes, it's biological. Okay,
that's a deduction.
Let me speak for a second. Yes, it is biologically impossible for a human being to live to 950. It's not 150, 950 in the Bible or the Quran, whatever, right? That is biologically impossible. You know that for a fact. That is impossible for a human being to live that long. So unless you have anything else that shows us that it is possible, well, then I'm going to logically assume that that is not possible.
But my point, you said a logically assume, so deduction.
Yes. What else would you do? Do you have anything? Do you have a counter piece of evidence that shows that people can live that long? Because as far as all the evidence we have suggests that you can't do that.
I'm not arguing whether Noah lived this long or that long. I'm showing that you accept deduction.
Of course, yes.
Okay. I'm glad we established that.
But based on the evidence, you are deducting things without evidence. Science is the evidence that you can't live that long. Is that
So, yeah. Sorry. Go
biology itself, our cells, right?
Okay. So let's do something. Let's say, for example, no one has ever observed the floor of the ocean, the bottom of the ocean. Do you need to observe it to come to the conclusion that the ocean has a bottom?
Well, we actually have observed the bottom of the ocean, but
hypothetically, if no one has ever observed it,
you don't have to observe it directly, but you do have to observe it indirectly by understanding that there are depths. There are bottoms of lakes, for example, and bottoms of ponds. So you can deduct that there is a bottom of the ocean, for example.
Okay, so let's say that you've never seen the bottom of any body of water at all. You can logically, deductively come to the conclusion that the ocean has a bottom. Otherwise, the water wouldn't be there.
So you can logically assume that, yes, if you have any acknowledgement of depth or bottomness, it doesn't have to be specifically water, but any kind of understanding of bottomness, yes, you can deduct that.
Okay.
I don't see what is the point here. What are you trying to get to? Aren't we talking about God, right? Isn't this all about God? Okay.
Yeah. The reason I wanted to get this out of the way now is because I wanted to meet on terms where we both agree deduction is a valid method to truth. And now that we've done this, because my argument is deductive, it's a deductive one, it's an ontological one. It uses first principles. So we need to
deduction with evidence is a viable option to truth, yes. But logic alone is not. Because again, I can say logically anything is true without actual evidence.
Okay, mathematics is like the first principle, right? Because with everything you need a first principle. For example, the scientific method is the principle that is used. You can't test the tester. You can't test the method. You assume it to be true, right? So even induction is based on
the method actually produces results, and that's what we can test.
Yeah, but how do you know that those results, because they're coming from the method? How do you know the method is producing true results?
Because they correspond with reality. If I want to know if gravity exists, all I have to do is drop this iPad a million times, and I can see that, yes, it's falling every single time. Therefore, the results, the method is true. It works. The method works.
Okay. Yeah. So, but this presupposes certain things. It presupposes that, one, the universe exists in a particular way. That's a presupposition. Two, it doesn't presuppose that the universe exists in a particular way.
We can observe patterns. Yes, we can observe patterns. We assume those patterns are true, but it's not necessarily presupposing anything like that, like what you're saying. Just that there are patterns.
If somebody didn't presuppose that the universe exists in a particular way, there would be no such thing as science, because there's no consistency.
Like it seems to be that the universe works in a specific pattern. Yes, that's all. So it exists in a particular way. And that is presupposed, yes, because that's what the evidence shows. That's what the evidence can demonstrate and produce.
Okay, exactly. And when it comes to the scientific method, we presuppose that that is a valid method to truth, that it works. You cannot test it. If you were to, and by the way, when you said that you can drop something, let me finish. I'm getting to that. I'm getting to that. If you drop that 100 times, you're using the scientific method. So you're using the scientific method to prove the scientific method. That's circular reasoning.
No, I'm not. I'm using the scientific method to demonstrate that gravity is possible. I'm giving a label to a pattern in the universe.
I'm talking. I mean, you misunderstand my point. I understand what you're saying, but you misunderstand my point. That the scientific method is presupposed to work. You can't prove the method works. You assume it does.
The evidence that we have in front of us, the phone that you're using, is evidence that science works. The iPad, everything around us that we've produced due to science is evidence that science works.
And how did you acquire that evidence? Using the scientific method.
Because we've used iPhones, we've used these things, we've built these things based on science. Science works because we have results. iPhones, iPads, things like that.
Exactly. So we're using the scientific method, assuming it to be true, and taking those results. If we use those results as proof that the scientific method works, that's circular reasoning. Well, you see what I'm getting at?
Yes. So the evidence shows us that the scientific method works. What else works other than science to you? What is a better method than science?
No, I'm saying that the evidence doesn't prove the method works. The method working is presupposed.
Look, the results show that the method works because the results correlate with reality as best as we can see.
And we see the reality and experience it and understand it using observation and the scientific method, correct?
Yeah, yes.
So you can't observe the scientific method. So you can't prove it. That's my point.
Are you serious?
It's assumed to be true.
People do science all the time in laboratories. We can do science. We can observe science happening and we can see the results.
You can't observe the method. You're not making any sense. I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. You can't test the method. You can only use it and suppose it to be true. Presuppose that it works.
We test the method every time we do science. Every time we do science, we test the method because it results in things that we can use in reality. It results in iPads. It results in physical things that we can use. Cars are a result of science. The scientific, how much science goes behind a car, how the engine works, the tires.
Okay,
a lot of science went into that.
Yeah, let me explain it like this, because a lot of people who love science, and science is beautiful, they misunderstand this, because behind every science there's a philosophy. There's a philosophy of science. And if you don't understand the philosophy of science, and if you don't understand that science is faith, that the future will behave like the past, then your understanding of the method is flawed. If you don't understand that the method is presupposed to work and we assume it works, then if you try and prove the method using the method, that's circular reasoning. This is why it's fallacious. It doesn't make sense.
And I can say the same about you. I can say you're just logically assuming and you don't have any way to test your logical assumptions. I can say this thing about you. But science, the difference between you and science is that science actually produces results. Again, I keep saying the same thing because you're not understanding. Science actually produces results that we can test, that we can observe.
Yeah. Yeah, falsifiability. I agree. But my point is what science is predicated on cannot be proven. It's assumed to be true. That's my point. And I agree. I think that's
give an example. Give an example of that.
the scientific method itself. Observing observations and coming to certain conclusions. And the entire method of induction based on observation is assumed to work. It's assumed to be true. And then we use that method.
Because it produces results that we can actually utilize in reality. That's why we presuppose science works, because it worked in the past. What is so difficult to understand?
I think I think you're confusing the results with the method. Because you can't, my point is you can't prove the method.
The results.
That's circular reasoning. That's circular reasoning.
Listen, the results demonstrate that the method is reliable.
If you use the results from that method, that is circular reasoning. That's what I'm stating.
Again, but the results have been produced many times. You can do this as many times as you want. Give me a better way of demonstrating this than science. Give me a better method than science.
I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm saying that's presupposed to be true.
Listen. You agree that all we have is our five senses, right?
That's not all we have. To observe, yes.
Okay.
To observe, yes.
We have more than five senses.
To observe, yes, but it depends on what you mean. In terms of what? In terms of observing the reality?
Sight, hearing, all these different senses that we have. That's all we have to work with. And as far as we know, science, yes, although the method is presupposed, it does work. It does seem to work.
Yeah, I never said it doesn't work.
But it seems to work, and it seems to produce things. And that's why we continue to use science. And we don't continue to use the Quran or the Bible because they're useless.
Okay, well, I'm glad we agree that science works and the method is presupposed, because that's all I was getting at. And the five senses to observe,
there is no other
but we
way.
Also have our
there's
you can deduction, logical deduction. Is it valid from first principles? 1 + 1 = 2.
How do you test your deductions true?
You can't. That's the point. Or you can test the deduction. You can. Let me finish. You can test the deduction in certain instances, like with the ocean, the bottom of the ocean, and the water. You can test that, but you don't need it. You don't need to. You can use logical deduction to come to that conclusion. Sound logic. Let me finish. Let me finish this, please. I need to finish this, Mike. Thank you. Set premises and sound logic, the conclusion will follow every time. That's why we have our five senses for observations, but we also have our intellect to use it logically to come to certain conclusions. There are certain things that we may not be able to observe, but we can deduce, whether it's based on a first principle or it's based on observation, we can still deduce these things.
Okay, again, but science is the better method because it actually produces results when your logical deductions don't.
Okay, you're
deducing God, right? I know you're deducing God, but you can't actually show that or demonstrate in any possible way that God is real. All you're doing is logically saying it.
I'm gonna demonstrate why that's actually backwards. Okay. Because firstly, 1 + 1 = 2, right? That's presupposed to be true. Because even if you take one apple and another apple and say 1 + 1 = 2, you've already used mathematical truths, which are presupposed to be true. This is 1, addition means 2. These are mathematical truths. You can't prove that, but it's objectively true every time. When it comes to science, you could see every apple you've ever observed is red until you come across a green one. And then you come across one that's rotting and it's almost black, and so on and so forth. Since the scientific method is based on our observations and we are not perfect, it cannot produce absolute truths in the same sense that logical deductions can.
Neither can you. No, you cannot produce absolute truths either.
Does 1 + 1 = 2 as a
mathematics? Yes, mathematics is absolutely true.
That's a logical deduction.
Mathematics is absolutely true because it's within itself. But outside of mathematics, it's just a concept. It's not absolutely true outside of mathematics. You can't get.
Yeah.
What?
I was gonna say, so like 1 apple + 1 apple doesn't equal 2 apples.
It does. Within mathematics, it does. But it's a concept. The idea of one is a concept.
It's a true concept which we can
observe
in reality if you need to.
Yes,
But
but your point is that we can't get to absolute truths. Is that your point, right? Or science doesn't get us to absolute truths, and I agree, science doesn't.
yeah,
But neither can you. Just
yeah.
by you presupposing God exists, it does not mean he does exist. That's your presupposition. Still,
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that? Can you repeat that?
You're saying God exists, right?
Yeah.
That's a presupposition based
No,
on
it's not.
based on no evidence. Yes,
But
it is.
you just said that you accept logical deductions as a form of as a method, a path to truth.
Yes, but
Right.
your logical deduction of God is not. But again, you forgot that I included the evidence part. That's the most important part. The ability to demonstrate that your logic is true.
Okay.
That's valuable versus just saying
I
whatever you
agree
want.
it's valuable. I agree it's valuable. I agree 100% it's valuable. But can you say that we'll never know if 1 + 1 = 2 since we cannot prove it without using mathematical truths to begin with?
Again,
Does 1 + 1 = 2?
Mathematics is a concept, just like language. You're asking like, should we use "and" in a sentence? It's like, yes, it's English is a concept. Mathematics is a language, just like English. Within the language, there's absolute truths. Within, yes, of course. But outside of that, it does not exist. Math is just a concept. It does not exist in the universe itself. It's not inherent in the universe. Just like English isn't.
I think that was a huge straw man, frankly, because math.
Explain.
I will explain. If you will let me explain, then I'll explain. Math is deduction. Math itself is deduction. It is a form of language, yes, but it's not a form of language like English is, because we use mathematical principles as first principles, and we can logically deduce certain things without observing them. For example, 1 = 1 is true regardless, objectively. 1 + 1 = 2 is true objectively. That's a logical deduction you come to using set premises and sound logic. And it cannot be compared to something like language. That's my entire point.
What is the number 1? The number 1 is a symbol. That's all it is. It's a symbolic concept. It's a language that humans have invented.
Demonstrate. I'm not talking. That's like calling me Rami and saying I'm not anything else but Rami. I'm not a human. I'm not.
Rami is a concept as well. It's also
it's an identification. It's an identification. Calling one doesn't take away from the fact that it is objectively true. We can call it 2. We can call it 3.
I agree.
But it's still okay. So what are we arguing about now?
You're saying that the only way to get to truth is by using mathematics or things like that.
Not the only way. Not the only way.
Okay, then show me. Just let's skip forward to the part where you actually give me the evidence for your God.
Okay. So, but I just want to make sure we agree that deduction is a path to truth.
A poor one, yes. It's a very poor method of truth because without evidence, logic is basically almost useless.
So 1 + 1 = 2 can never fully be known.
Mathematics is separate from logic in the fact that it's a mathematical proofs, right? It's a language that we've described using abstract things, abstract symbols that represent physical objects in reality. That's what math is.
Yeah, they represent an objective truth that 1 = 1. We're using it as terms.
The number 1 is used to represent one iPad, for example, right?
Yes.
But 1 does not objectively exist in the world. 1 is just a concept as well.
I'm not saying 1 objectively exists as a physical thing, but that doesn't take away from the fact that 1 = 1 is objectively true.
I'm not arguing that it isn't. I agree with that.
Exactly. So my point is, if you say, for example, very simple, 1 + 1 = 2, that's using set premises and sound logic to come to a conclusion that nobody can dispute regardless of anything.
Because mathematics is demonstrable. I can have one iPad plus one iPad. You have two iPads.
But you've already used a mathematical truth when you said this is one iPad and this is another iPad. So together they're two. You're using a mathematical truth. So that would be circular reasoning.
That mathematical truths that we've prescribed mathematics in the first place. One represents one thing, right? One iPad. You can't use mathematics to prove God.
Mike, you can't conflate the term we use for what it represents. And that's what you're doing.
Okay, again, you can't use mathematics to show that God exists. You can't use logic to demonstrate that God exists. You can use those tools as ways to provide, maybe point to evidence that God exists, but you can't use those tools to actually demonstrate that God exists, because they're just tools within themselves. They're objectively true within themselves.
So math is, yeah, but actually it doesn't. But math is only true within itself.
Yes. Yes.
So when you, okay, how many people are here on the camera right now?
Again, I can prescribe mathematics to represent one Rami, right? One Mike.
Yes.
But mathematics is just a language. That's all we're doing. We're just prescribing language to things.
Okay, I think this is again a really big straw man.
Can
because
you explain
mathematics.
yourself?
I will explain myself.
Go ahead.
Firstly, technically, there's 3 mics. Secondly,
Yeah.
secondly, mathematics is presupposed to be true.
As it should be. Why wouldn't you? Because we made it up. But we made it up in the first place.
We didn't make up math. No, we didn't make math.
Wait. You think we didn't make up math? Aristotle and all those guys, do you think they didn't make mathematics?
They didn't make up mathematical truths.
Yes, they did.
They presupposed that 1 equals 1. They presupposed that 2 equals 2. They presupposed.
Yes, because they described it in the first place. They're describing 1 + 1 is 2 equals true. That's what they're describing it as.
Yeah, but they're presupposing that 1 equals 1, 2 equals 2. These are presuppositions that we just accept as facts.
Okay, we're also presupposing that and or Rami is a word in English. We're also presupposing that basketball is a word in English too. It doesn't make sense to say that
English is not deduction.
Logic.
English is not deduction in the sense that math is.
But it is analogous because it is in the same way as mathematics. It's a language.
Yeah. So when you're comparing a language to a language, you could say, yeah, okay, it's mathematics. When you're comparing like DNA, for example, you could also say it's a language. But the point here is that math is deduction. Language is not deduction. So it's not comparable in this.
Math is a deduction based on how we think the universe works. Again, 1 iPad plus another iPad is 2 iPads. Right?
It's not based on the universe. We look at the universe in a mathematical sense, because when you say this is 1 iPad, you're using a mathematical truth. That mathematical truth that 1 is 1 is presupposed to be true. That's my entire point.
Yes, because we made it up in the first place. We described it as true because 1 iPad is 1.
Okay.
We could demonstrate that there's 1 iPad.
Okay. I'm going to say this one more time. I'll let you respond however you want, and then we'll move on from this to the God argument. Okay?
Okay.
One more time. When you say this is 1 water bottle, you've used a mathematical truth by calling it 1 water bottle. So when you take another one and you say this is the second and 1 + 1 equals 2, those are mathematical truths you're using, which makes it circular reasoning.
So you're saying mathematics is circular?
No, I'm not saying mathematics is circular.
I'm
saying mathematics is presupposed to be true. It is presupposed as a fact.
I agree.
Being 1 is presupposed to be true.
But
and you can't prove it. You can't prove 1 equals 1. You can't prove 1 + 1 equals 2. Because as soon as you try to, you use mathematical truths already. As soon as you say this is 1 water bottle, you've already failed. That's circular arguing, because you're using math to prove math. This is 1.
What? So you're saying mathematics is a circular thing to use? Wow. Okay.
I'm saying trying to prove mathematics by saying this is 1 water bottle is circular reasoning, because math is something that is accepted to be objectively true. You can't prove 1 + 1 equals 2. You can't prove 1 is 1.
What?
I
can demonstrate on a piece of paper that 1 is 1. I can demonstrate that 1 iPad is 1.
Mike, as soon as you pick something up and say this is 1 pen, you're using a mathematical truth to say this is 1 pen. That's circular reasoning.
Okay.
Because you're using a mathematical truth to begin with.
Let's just move on.
All right. So this is the argument. All right. The moment we've been waiting for. This is the argument. There's 3 types of existences. 1, an impossible existence, meaning it simply cannot be. For example, 2 mutually exclusive terms. So a married bachelor, right? You can't have someone who's married and someone who's a bachelor be the same person, right? A squared circle, straight contradiction. You can't. That it's impossible, right? We'll move on from that. Second, there's possible existences. To summarize it, it could have any or all of these three characteristics. One, it's dependent, so it relies on something else to exist, to continue to exist, or to be in the first place. Two, it could exist in another way. And now, before the determinists come and say everything's determined, we're not talking about in the causal chain, or I don't want to use the term causation, but in the plethora of possible existences. We don't mean in a chain. We mean isolated, irrespective of everything else. It could exist in a different way. And three, its non-existence does not affect the rest of existence. For example, if you remove me from existence, yeah, this debate wouldn't happen. Mike would be chilling, maybe reading a science book in his backyard instead of talking to me. But I don't affect the rest of existence, just a few things. So now, this is the argument. There cannot be a world of only possible existences, because that would fall into an infinite regression of contingent things that have no foundation, which is not contingent. Now, I'm going to stop there before I move on to like the necessary existence part to see if there's any contentions with this so far.
So what exactly do you define by contingent? Something that is contingent. Do you mean in a...
Yeah, so the three, the three, I'll mention them again. I know I kind of spoke a little fast, but one, the three characteristics. One, it's dependent, right? Relies on something else. Two, it could exist in another way. For example, my hat could be orange, right? Instead of green. And three, its non-existence doesn't affect the rest of existence. These are three qualifications, qualities, characteristics of something that is contingent.
Okay, so give an example of something that's contingent.
I am contingent. My beard is contingent.
On
my
what?
Hat is...
On what?
So, for example, my beard is contingent on me being here, right? My hat's contingent of all the material that it's made out of and the person that made it, right? Headphones, same thing. Everything.
It's contingent to be in that specific configuration, but it's not contingent to exist, right?
Would these headphones exist as they are without being in this form, in this shape, in this?
They would still exist, just not in that form.
So
why does that matter what form it is?
Because then they're no longer headphones.
So what? They would just be particles of something else.
Okay, so are you saying that particles would be the necessary existence?
We don't know. Particles just exist. I mean, they seem to be infinite. They seem to be eternal. We don't know how they got here, if they did get here. But there's no reason to think that particles needed a cause to exist, or anything needed a cause to exist.
Well, I mean, I didn't use the term cause. I specifically said I'm not going to use the term cause because it's not just causation. One, begets another, creates another. Something comes from something else, and we can go deeper into it, causation, limitation, dependency, and all of that. But it's pretty well summarized with these three characteristics. So, for example, you said, let's go with the particles thing, right? Let's say that the particles are the independent, infinite, and eternal necessary existence, right?
I don't even know what that means, but okay.
Okay, how about this? I'll finish the rest of the argument to bring it all together, and then we'll go back to the particle thing. So, all right. The argument is you cannot have just a world. You can't have a world of just possible contingent existences, because that would fall into infinite regression. Because, and I'll use causation as a demonstration, but it's not just causation, right? So let's say, how should I go about this? Let's say that a universe needs a universe before it to exist. So our universe came from one before it, that came from one before it, that came from one before it, back into infinity, right? It's going on at infinitum. Existence wouldn't exist because they're all dependent on something before it. None of them would ever exist to begin with, including our universe, right?
Hold on. Are you conflating, you're equating existence to universes? Is that what you're doing?
I'm using universe as a substitute for existence, but I could say existence. Instead, okay. I could say, let's say existence 1 comes from existence 2, which comes from existence 3, which comes from existence 4, and that this goes back at infinitum.
Okay, go ahead.
None of
Keep
them,
going.
none of them would exist because they're all contingent on something else. So we need to get to a point where there is something that exists that's not contingent. Because if it's not necessary through itself, if it's necessary or if it's possible through something else, I'll put it like this. If everything in existence is possible through something else, nothing would exist.
I don't even know what non-existence even means. But okay, all I know is existence. I don't know what anything you're saying, but you can continue.
Okay. I'll wrap it up. Then we'll come back and kind of delve through it a little bit. So the point is that since you can't have a world of contingent things, you need something that is not contingent. It's not possible. It's necessary. So these are the characteristics of such an existence. There must never be a time when the necessary existence does not exist. It must be uncaused, so it's not contingent at all. And it does not depend on anything, but everything that exists ultimately depends on the necessary existence.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's go back to the point. That's the full argument. Let's go back to the point where you can't have an infinite...
I don't see God there. I didn't hear the word God anywhere.
Well, I feel like if I just said we must have God, you would call it God of the gaps. So I'm saying the necessary existence. And there's more.
Yeah,
there's more.
I would call it the God of the gaps because nowhere did you say God. I mean, the best that argument can get to is that there was maybe a cause. That's the best you can get to.
We're getting there.
Let me talk. It doesn't say anything about the cause. You have no idea what the cause even is. All you're doing is assuming that the cause is God. Makes no sense.
Okay, that's not what I'm doing, and I'm going to demonstrate how. Okay, I'm going to
go ahead.
We'll go in depth. And I wrote these down because I thought it would come up. So let's talk about causation as one of the points, because we know that things can cause other things.
No.
Let me be very clear about my wording. I never said everything that begins to exist has a cause. I said we know things cause other things.
Yeah, things cause other things to change, yes, but not to exist.
So me coming from my mother didn't cause my existence.
No.
So I don't exist. I don't exist.
You stop using strawmans, okay?
How's it a straw man?
Because I'm speaking right now. Because you, as a Rami, right? That's a label, but you are just a collection of particles. That's what you really are. So when you say my mom made me exist, no, she didn't. What she did is she provided one single cell that produced you. You existed. Your particles existed before your mother. They existed, as far as we know, for as long as we can imagine. Okay. So yes, you always existed as far as we know. Your particles always existed.
Okay, let's go with that then. Let's go with that. Okay. So you're saying because they're, again, and I want you to actually refute this point, that there must be a necessary existence, and you cannot have a world of just contingent things.
I don't even know what necessary existence means. I mean, all we know is the universe. As far as we know, we don't even know what is outside of the universe, if there is an outside. So I don't know what to say, dude.
Okay.
You're just making these labels a necessary existence. I don't even know what that even means.
I'm giving specific characteristics.
And how do you know the characteristics?
This is a deductive argument.
For what?
For the necessary existence, Mike.
Okay, how do you know this necessary existence is real?
Because there are contingent existences, and you can't have a world of only contingent existences.
But we just went through this. I'm not contingent on anything. My particles have always been here.
Okay, so you're saying that, in essence, particles would be the necessary existence. They are the thing that's not contingent upon anything else.
I'm not assuming that. I'm just simply saying there's no reason to think that we are contingent or the particles are contingent to anything. They might be.
Okay.
But there's no reason to think that.
Okay, so for me to be here, I'm contingent on the particles that make me.
For you to be here, yes, you're contingent on your particles. But no, not to exist in the first place, but to be in that room you're in, yes. But that doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, you would still exist.
Okay, firstly, do I exist or do I not exist?
You exist.
Okay, thank you. Glad to know. I thought I was going crazy for a second.
No, you're not understanding. You're not understanding what I'm saying, and it shows. The
Mike,
particles that make up you would still exist. You wouldn't
okay,
exist in that room,
yeah,
but you would still exist in the universe.
okay, okay. So I mean, I wouldn't be Rami necessarily. I would
Exactly.
just be particles. Okay, so you're saying that the particles are the necessary existence. They're not contingent upon anything. They are independent, eternal, infinite, so on and so forth.
Again, you're putting words in my mouth. I'm not saying they are necessary. I'm simply saying, as far as we know, there's no reason to think they are necessary, or they aren't, as you're assuming.
Okay, I'm gonna go through the list now. So first is causation, right? Actually, we could skip it. If you don't even believe in causation, we'll skip it because it's very straightforward.
Well, I know there's cause and effect, but
Okay.
but that doesn't mean there was a beginning or the existence required something else to exist. There's changes in the universe. The universe transforms over time. That's all we know.
Okay, but to believe that, you would have to believe that particles in the universe always existed and they are the necessary existence.
They may have. I don't know. Nobody knows. Do you know?
Okay.
Do you have any evidence that everything is eternal or that God made us? I don't know. Not even the most famous, most prominent cosmologists know the answer. So no.
Okay, so I'm going to give the argument about causation then. So firstly, you cannot have an infinite regression of things causing other things, because if everything needed a cause, you'd have infinite regression. So that can't be the case. Secondly,
okay, hold on. It could be the case that the universe is eternal and that there is an infinite regression. Why can't that be the case?
I'm not saying it's not.
And
I'm not saying it's not.
And by the way, the same would apply to your God. If your God caused us to exist, then then there must be a cause for him to cause the existence. So the same applies to your God.
No, Mike.
Infinite regress of gods and gods and gods.
Okay, that's actually a misrepresentation of the argument. So firstly, I'm not using the kalam. I'm not. But the kalam cosmological argument is everything that begins to exist has a cause. Since God did not begin, he did not have a cause. He did not need one. He's uncaused.
Give me an example of something that began to exist.
See, this is the thing. If you have the worldview that everything is just
an example of something that began to exist.
Let me finish. If you hold the worldview that everything is particles, then to you nothing began to exist. But
what else is the universe? Magic? Fairy dust? Is the universe made of fairy dust?
I'm not saying it's made of fairy dust.
It's made of matter.
Okay, listen. You're honest. Okay, Mike.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I began to exist. I believe you began to exist.
How?
Yes.
How did you explain how you began to exist? Explain that.
I was born on August 21st, 2000. Before that, I was not here.
The concept of you was born, but your particles were not born. They didn't just poof into existence.
I'm gonna skip to the end result then. Okay. So
answer the question. Did you begin to exist? Yes or no?
Yes, I did begin to exist.
How?
Yes.
How did your particles just begin to exist?
I never said particles began to exist. I don't believe I'm just particles. This is why I started by saying if you believe in just particles.
So what are you made of? Magic?
I never said I'm made of magic.
Leprechaun
I'm physically I physically compiled of I'm physically compiled of particles. Okay, that's cool. I don't think that
dude, what are you saying right now? You're agreeing with me. Your argument is useless.
Physically. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate.
Is useless.
I'm going to demonstrate. Pause. This is a huge straw man because this has nothing to do with my argument. You misrepresented the entire idea of infinite regression from contingent things because it's predicated. Your argument is predicated solely on the collection of particles being the necessary existence. You cannot have an infinite regress of contingent possible things because then existence wouldn't exist. And I'm trying to explain this to you.
We don't even know what existence is. We don't even know what existence is. We can barely observe the universe. Who knows what's out there?
It's not based on observation.
You know what existence is.
It's not based on observation.
But your argument, like I said, you just agreed that we're made of particles.
I said, yeah, we are made of particles. I didn't say only particles. I didn't say that particles are the necessary existence. So there's a difference. See, this is the thing. It's not just causation. It's limitation. It's dependency. It's a multitude of things. If something can exist in another way, it's not necessary. If something is made of smaller parts, it's not necessary. So if you are saying that the plethora, the multitude, just let me finish this point. If you are saying that the multitude of these particles is the necessary existence that is uncaused, that is not contingent upon anything, that is necessary, not possible, this is fallacious. And the reason for that is, what is the sum of all particles? Every individual particle together. So the summation of the particles is predicated on what? The individual particle. That's why it's fallacious. You still need an external, independent, unlimited existence that's necessary to allow that to be.
Why can't the sum of the universe be just the particles? Why can't that be?
I just explained why. Because the sum of the particles is broken down into every individual particle. So it's contingent upon every individual particle. Therefore, it's fallacious to say that it's necessary.
What's wrong with that? Why can't the universe be contingent on itself? Just like your God is. Your God is an independent thing, right? Why can't the universe be?
If it's contingent upon itself, that's just saying it's necessary. And if it's necessary, it cannot be comprised of smaller parts. The sum of particles.
Why not?
Because if it's broken down into smaller parts, then it's contingent upon those parts.
Okay, so what? What's wrong with that?
So if it's contingent upon those parts, it's not necessary. It did not need to be. And it only exists because
on itself.
That's a difference. That's different.
How is it different? The universe could be necessary by itself. It could be the case.
The universe is comprised of contingent things.
So what?
So therefore, it's made of contingent things.
So what?
So you're breaking the universe down into contingent objects, which makes the universe contingent.
Why can't it be contingent on itself? Why not?
I'm not saying it can't be,
just
but I'm saying
just like your God is, right? Your God is contingent on itself.
That's not contingent. That's necessary.
That way?
That's necessary through itself. The reason the universe cannot be necessary through itself, the reason the universe cannot be necessary through and of itself is two main reasons. One, it is subject to change. Anything that is subject to change. For example, let's say we had me, except I had one less arm. Me, full body, two arms. I can't be necessary if I can exist in a different way, because the way I am is not necessary. You fathom the non-existence of the original thing if you change it. So if the universe exists in different ways, then its original as it is not necessary. Secondly, the universe is what? The universe
you don't have a first one. No, you don't have a first one. There's no.
What do you mean we don't have a first one?
There's no need for the universe, or there's no reason why the universe must be a specific way. There's no reason why. Do you have another? Do you have another universe to compare this one to?
You're misunderstanding my point. You're misunderstanding my point.
Listen. What you're saying is that
that's a tangent.
What you're saying is that the universe can only be this specific way, right?
I never said that.
Okay,
I never said that.
So you're saying the universe can be different ways, right?
Yes.
Okay. Why is that an issue?
Because if something, and this is what I was trying to explain, if something.
I'm sorry. Why? Do you have another universe to compare this one to say that the universe could be a different way?
Why would I need another universe to compare it to?
Because your entire argument depends on that. It depends on the fact that there could be other options, right? Isn't that what you're saying?
Yes, it could exist in a different way, and it's comprised of contingent existences. So the universe as a whole, in formality, is contingent upon contingent existences.
Okay. So and now what's the issue with that? Yeah, what's the issue with that?
It's if you have something that's contingent upon contingent things, and you have an infinite regress of that, then you wouldn't have existence at all, because everything's contingent on something else. Because if everything is possible only through something else, then nothing exists.
Why can't the universe be recycling over and over? The particles of the universe be recycling. Why can't that be possible?
I'm not saying it can't be. I'm not saying it can't be. Your
argument's useless, because that's what you're arguing. You're arguing that. That's what I'm trying to get to.
No, I'm not arguing that. You're misunderstanding the entire argument. This is the issue. My argument is that you cannot have a chain of existence of all contingent things. The reason this is an issue is if everything is contingent on something else, then there is nothing to bring anything into existence, because for me to exist, I'm contingent on something else. For that thing to exist, it's contingent on something else. Infinite regress, and nothing would exist. So I'm not saying it's impossible for the universe to be recycling itself and so on and so forth, but I'm saying it's not the necessary existence. It would still leave an empty slot where there must be something that is necessary through itself. The universe, if it's recycling itself in its closed system, that's fine, but that doesn't make it the necessary existence. It's
Why
still,
not? Why not? Why can't the universe be recycling over and over again in the way it is? Explain.
It can be. Again, you're completely misrepresenting my point.
No. If you're saying it can be, then your argument is not what you're arguing for. Your argument is useless. You're not.
You don't understand. What's my argument? What's my argument?
That the universe must be contingent to something else, and you just admitted that it doesn't have to be.
No,
so argument.
I never said it doesn't have to be contingent. I said specifically.
Everybody who's watching. Everybody who's watching. Play back. He just
said
it. He said it's possible.
Play back.
I said it's possible.
I said it's possible for the universe to be recycling. I never said that means it's not contingent. I never said that's not contingent.
Why wouldn't it be contingent on itself?
The necessary.
That's what it means.
That you're misunderstanding my argument completely. The universe. Yes, you are, Mike. Yes, you are. I'll explain it. I'll explain it in depth. Okay.
Go ahead.
Again, let's say there is a necessary existence. The necessary existence creates the universe in a closed system where it's recycling itself. That's possible, but you cannot say that closed system is a necessary existence in and through itself, because anything that's subject to change, you must fathom the non-existence of it in its original form. And even if you say that there's no such thing, the universe just is a bunch of particles, this is the issue. The universe as a whole, I'm going to give two examples. I'll start with particles. When you say particles, you mean the sum of all particles, then the sum of all particles is based on every individual particle, meaning the entire summation is contingent upon every individual particle. That is why it cannot be necessary.
You're just repeating yourself again and again.
Yes, because you're not understanding. Because you're not understanding my entire argument.
You're not understanding, dude. You just said the universe could possibly be recycling over and over again. There's no issue with that at all.
But that doesn't make it necessary.
Okay, it doesn't have to be necessary.
Exactly.
And by the way, just you said before, whatever is subject to change. Well, isn't God subject to change? Doesn't your God change, or he's always the same?
He doesn't change. What about God changes?
So if God, well, he created the universe, right? That's change in itself.
That's not change. That's not change within God.
Causing something is change, is it not?
It's not changing yourself. That's not God changing.
If you cause something, you've caused a change. Did you not?
So if I build a house, I changed?
You changed the house. You changed things, right?
Yeah, but that's not God changing. There's a difference between something existing in a different way and causing something to exist in a different way. See, this is the problem. You're conflating two things that are completely
No. How is it? You're not understanding. If God changed something, if God created something or caused something, or caused, like the Quran says, he caused people to go fight each other, right? Or kill the non-believers. That means your God is doing something. If your God sent a message to Muhammad, right? That means he caused something to change. That means he's part of the universe.
What?
That is changing.
What?
He's part of existence. He's part of the change. He's part of the change.
He's part of the chain of existence. He's part of the chain of existence. That doesn't mean he exists in a different way. Complete straw man. That's off topic.
But you said that isn't God outside of space and time?
Yes.
So then he's existing in this chain. How can he exist in this chain?
I didn't say
if he's outside of time and space.
When I say chain, I mean God makes the universe, for example, and then all these things come about in the universe. God is the beginning of that chain, but he's not within the closed system of the universe.
But he gave him a message. But he gave him a message to Muhammad. How is that not part of the universe?
He sent an angel to deliver a message. That doesn't mean that God is a part of the universe.
What? You think God's not part of the universe?
Do you believe in God to begin with? Do you believe God to begin with? So are you going to say you're going to argue that God's a part of the universe? I'm not saying.
What a great argument. You're
trying to argue.
Ridiculous, man.
Okay, amazing.
I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be mean here.
Okay, really, congratulations, Mike.
You're a good guy. But
I appreciate it.
But if God gave a message to Muhammad, that means he's part of the universe.
No, he doesn't. Okay, demonstrate it, please. How does it mean he's part of the universe? How? How is he a part of the universe?
If God came down and gave me a message, that would mean he's part of the universe.
God didn't come down. He did not come down. That's what we're saying. See, you can't
Then
provide
how
an
did he give a
example.
message? Then how did
I
Muhammad
said
get
he-
the message?
I said,
Muhammad's down, right? Muhammad is down,
yes,
right?
yes, I
So
explained.
how
God
did he
sent
get the
an,
message?
God sent an angel to deliver the message.
So that angel is part of the universe.
The angel can come within the universe. Yes, but God is not in the universe.
But God is part of the angel, is he not?
No, he's not a part of it. How is he a part of the angel?
So the angel's an individual existence. The angel
Yes.
is a necessary existence.
Nope, no.
Outside of-
Okay,
outside of your
don't
God.
play that game. It's not necessary. It's possible outside of God. Not necessary. See, man, honestly, come on. I like you as well, but this, like, you have to know that these arguments don't even make sense when you're jumping back and forth between.
What? You
Oh,
don't
this
even
is
have.
necessary,
You
this is
haven't
possible.
even given a logical argument yet. You're just saying that everything's contingent and therefore God
Yes.
exists.
I never said therefore God. I said therefore the necessary existence.
Okay, let's assume that there was a necessary existence.
Yeah,
What does that mean about the cause? Let's get to the God part now.
yeah.
Let's
What do you-
let's say you're right and there is a necessary existence. How do we know it's God and specifically your God?
Okay, that's a good question. And by the way, it's not just about causation, as I've said many times. It's not just about causation. Causation could be one, but it could also be limitation. For example, every limited thing that exists is defined by its limitation. And without that limitation, it wouldn't be, right? For example, the iPad you just picked up. It wouldn't be if it wasn't defined by those specific limitations. I'll give another example. It's easy. If I draw a circle, that circle didn't exist until I drew it, right? It's limited, and it's defined by the limitation that I gave it. I'm also limited. If the thing I came from is limited, and the thing that came from that is limited, and so on and so forth, you have infinite regression again. So you need something that's unlimited at the beginning. Same thing with the cause. You need something that's uncaused.
Okay, so you're basically saying your God is omnipotent, which is a paradox. Can your God do something evil? Can your God do evil?
Okay, so when you say God can do anything, right? That's basically right? Okay. When you say God can do anything, first we have to define what do we mean by anything. A thing is something that is possible, right? So we just explained that you can't have what was the term I used? Impossible existences. A squared circle. That's not a thing. So there's nothing, or there's no chance of doing it because it's not even a thing to begin with.
But
so when you say,
being evil is possible, is it not?
Being evil is not possible for God.
So then he's not unlimited. He's
No,
limited. He's limited by something. Something's limiting him from being good.
I'm going to explain like this. The question itself is a contradiction. The question itself is that's like asking, this man is a bachelor. When did he get married? It's like, what are you talking about? I can't give a date. He never got married. So when you say God is all good, can he do bad? No, he can't do bad because he's all good. That's a contradiction. It's like asking, can God create a rock he can't lift? As soon as you say God, you're describing an all-powerful being. As soon as you say can't lift, that's an impossibility. And not being able to do something that makes you weak is not weakness.
Okay.
It's not weakness.
But again, unlimited means you can do anything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's logically possible or not. Your God can do anything. It doesn't matter what logic says. Logic is something we invented. Right?
Anything.
If you're saying that God can only do things that are logically possible, then your God is limited by logic. And who is limiting God by his logic? Who's limiting him?
This is why it's important to understand the philosophical concepts. Because when you say a thing, what is a thing? A thing is something which is possible. God being weak, God ceasing to exist is not possible. And that doesn't make God limited. That actually makes him necessary.
So he's not unlimited. That's what omnipotence means. It means you can do anything.
Listen, Mike, doing anything entails that it's something that is possible. A squared circle is not a possible thing. It's not a thing. So when we say God can do anything, it's something that is possible. Saying can God make a rock that he can't lift is a contradiction. Why is that a contradiction? Because when you say God, you're talking an all-powerful being. When you say can't, you're limiting him. That's not a possibility.
Exactly. And that's you're not willing to admit that the paradox applies to your God because you're saying that he can do anything.
Your
So
question is a fallacy.
listen.
Your question is illogical. It's self-defeating. Your question is self-defeating.
You're redefining what it means to be unlimited and saying that he could only do things that are logically possible. So then obviously do you agree that God is limited by logic?
I never said God is limited by logic. You're misrepresenting my entire point. This is a straw man. This is a straw man. I'm going to explain why.
Answer the question. Is God limited by logic? Can he do things that are logically impossible?
Do things that are logically impossible?
Yeah, can he do that?
That doesn't mean he's limited by logic if he can't.
What? Yes,
Listen,
that's what it means. If you can't do something that's logically impossible, that means you're limited by logic.
Mike.
By the way,
your question is a fallacy. Your question is a fallacy.
How
okay,
is it?
I'll explain it. When you say God, you're talking about an all-powerful being. When you say, is he limited by something? That's a fallacy. God who is unlimited, is he limited by something? That's fallacious. That's a fallacy.
It's
an illogical question.
It's fallacious because you say so.
You're the one.
It's not
no, it's a fallacy.
Fallacious.
Yes, it is. Can you have an all-powerful being that's so powerful and makes itself weak? That's a contradiction. That's fallacious. It doesn't make sense.
Exactly. That's why it's a paradox to call your God unlimited. And
no, that's why it's a paradox to ask, can he do things that make him weak? That's why it's a fallacy. Paradox. Yes, it is. That's the definition of a paradox. They're mutually exclusive.
So can you answer the question? Is God limited by logic?
That's a fallacious question. That's my point. It doesn't make sense. It's self-defeating.
It's a yes or no.
It's self-defeating.
Again, how is it self-defeating if it's logical?
Are you orange or purple? One or two? Orange or purple?
That's
orange
not
or purple?
illogical. That's illogical. I'm saying, is God limited by logic?
That's illogical because you're neither. If I'm demanding only two answers, purple or orange, you can't give either because you're neither.
Okay, so who created logic? Didn't God create logic?
When you say logic, you mean? I think he cut out. I think he cut out. Man, wallah, I'm trying to be nice, bro. I'm trying to be nice. He keeps misrepresenting my argument. For the record, I did not kick him out. Okay, he's back.
Sorry about it. I don't know what happened.
Probably Wi-Fi. It's okay. It's okay.
Anyway, so sorry if I sound mean or something. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just passionate, right?
That's fair.
I just want to ask you.
Yes.
Who created logic? Did God create logic or no? Or do we create logic?
Yeah. So let's define. When you say logic, you mean the means that we use as humans to come to certain conclusions, right? Our like logical way of thinking, right? So God created us with logic. So if you want to say that God created logic, okay, you could say that God created us with logic.
Okay. So why wouldn't your God be able to defy his own logic?
We're not saying that God can't defy the logic of a human being. We're saying that question itself is self-defeating. It's fallacious, which means it literally means nothing.
If your God can defy logic that humans made, right, that he gave us or something, that means your God can defy logic that perhaps we're not aware about, right? He can do things that we don't think are possible.
Yeah, but there's a difference between, thinking something is impossible, right? Like a worldwide flood or a flood where waves are the size of mountains, and something that's mutually exclusive, self-defeating. Like God, if I were to say God can't make a married bachelor, it's not because God is weak. It's because a married bachelor is they're mutually exclusive.
I agree.
So that's self-defeating.
I agree, but I'm not saying that. I agree. Your God might be limited by logic, but I'm not. You're not answering the question. You're not really answering the question,
Mike. I'm not answering the question the way you want me to because it's self-defeating, and I've tried to demonstrate a few times how it's self-defeating.
It's a yes or no. I mean, is God limited by his logic or not?
It's not yes or no because that question itself is self-defeating, which means it's not even a valid question. It doesn't make sense.
Are you limited by logic? Yes or no?
I am limited by logic, yes.
Is God limited by logic?
When you say God, you're talking about an all-powerful being. And when you say, is he limited by something, that's a self-defeating statement.
So then he's not limit. So then he's unlimited. So that means he can do anything above logic. He can do anything he wants, right?
Mike,
Can God do anything he wants? Yes or no?
God can do whatever he wills. Whatever he wills, yes.
So he could potentially do things that are logically impossible if he willed it to do. If willed it to be.
That is self-defeating.
All right, let's move on because you're not answering. Let's move on.
I mean, it's a self-defeating question, so I don't know what you want me to say.
Do you want to get into something else? Do you want to talk about anything else?
We'll move on. We'll move on.
Honestly,
but
I got to go in a few minutes, but I got some more time.
Okay.
Talk more later if you want.
Okay. So I've basically gotten to the point where I've demonstrated how a necessary existence must exist. I haven't really heard much of a response or a refutation to that point. It's just, why can't the universe be that? Why can't particles be that? But we've basically agreed that there must be one.
No, I haven't. I did not agree that there must be one. I'm saying that there might be one. We don't know, and you don't know either. Just because
I do know that there must be a necessary existence.
Just because you deducted by logic does not mean it's necessarily true. You're
If
just
the premise
deducting
is
things you want.
No, it's not what I want. If the premise is true and the logic is sound, the results will follow.
Yes, and I disputed you many times.
How did you dispute?
Logic.
How did you? Okay, do it again.
Because your logic assumes that something began to exist, and that's not true.
No,
began to exist.
I never said that. That's the kalam. I mentioned it, but that's not my argument. This is my point. I'll give you the three.
So then you agree that the universe could have not just began to exist. The universe could have always been here. Do you agree?
It could be eternal. Yes, it could be eternal, but that doesn't mean. Let me finish. It could be eternal. That doesn't make it necessary. You can have a sun that's eternal. The sun's rays would also be eternal, but they're not the same because the sun's rays depend on the sun. They're not the same. So just because it's eternal, even if it's eternal and infinite, it does not make it necessary.
The sun's rays wouldn't depend on the sun.
Could they be there without the sun?
If all there was a sun and the rays, then all there is particles, right? You're just describing it as a sun, but it's just particles that were always there in the first place. Light was always there. Light is a particle, okay? Lights are photons. Perhaps have always existed.
And again, if anyone's not answering the question, it's you. I've explained many times why the particles in summation cannot be the necessary existence, and why even if they worked in a closed system, you would still need an independent, unlimited, necessary existence that does not need anything from anyone to exist, that can exist necessarily by itself.
I don't see how you got there at all. That's the issue. I don't see how you got to that, because the universe could just be the necessary existence.
Okay, so you agree there needs to be a necessary existence?
No, I'm saying the universe could be necessary. I'm not saying there must be. That's what you're saying. I'm saying there could be.
So there could not be. It's possible that there is no necessary existence. Is that what you're saying? Okay, this is why, and that's a contradiction, by the way. Because if everything is,
it could be possible that the universe is the necessary existence. Yes.
That's not what I asked. Is it possible that there is no necessary existence at all, regardless of what it is? Is it possible?
I don't know, but the universe could be eternal and necessary. It could be.
Eternal and necessary are not the same thing.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter. It could be eternal and necessary.
Okay, I'll give you that. Maybe it's necessary, maybe it's not. I'm trying to find out, do you agree that there must be a necessary existence?
I don't know. When you say the word must, I don't know. I don't know how to demonstrate that. A must. A must is a very profound word.
Yes.
You're saying that there must be a necessary existence.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know that. There could not be.
Okay, this is why it's illogical to say that it's even possible that there's no necessary existence. If everything is possible through something else, everything that exists is only possible through something else, nothing would exist. Nothing would exist if it's only possible through something else. That's like a mom giving birth to itself. How does that chain exist? If it's all dependent, if it's all contingent, how does that chain exist?
Wouldn't the same apply to your God then? It's like your God giving birth to itself.
that doesn't make sense, because we're not saying God is contingent or possible. We're saying God is necessary.
How convenient it is that you make up whatever you want and say that must be the necessary existence.
No, I'm not saying the necessary existence must be God. That's what I believe. And I'll get to that. But when I'm talking about the necessary existence, I'm talking about how it is necessary, why it's necessary, why it's impossible to have a world of only contingent existences, why having a necessary existence is, as it's called, necessary. There's no way to refute that, Mike. That's my point.
Yes,
There's
there
no way
is.
around that. Okay, what's the refutation?
Nothing is contingent on anything else to exist. I just explained this. We explained this before. I'm not contingent on anything else to exist.
Okay, so are you a summation of particles?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that summation is contingent upon every individual particle. Yes or no? It's made up of the particles.
Sure, my existence is dependent on my existence. Yeah. Wow.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. That's what
you're saying. You're saying my particles are.
That's not what I'm saying.
You're saying my particle is dependent on my particles. Yeah.
No, I said that the summation of all the particles together, which make up you, me, the universe, can be broken down to every individual particle. And anything that is subject to being disassembled cannot be the necessary existence. Therefore, even if particles are recycling themselves and everything is just physical and whatever, I can give you that. It doesn't matter. You would still need something that is necessary, because the particles themselves would still be contingent. That's what I'm saying.
And what's the issue with particles being contingent on other particles?
So
why can't that be?
So particles are dependent on other particles, and particles are dependent on other particles. They're like dependent on each other.
Yeah. Why can't that? Why is that impossible?
Yeah. Because essentially you fall into the same fallacy. You're just pushing it a step back. So let's say I depend on you and you depend on me, right? We would never exist. We would never exist to begin with. Because for me to exist, you need to exist. But for you to exist, I need to exist.
No. You're not. The existence of me does not depend on anything to exist.
I'm giving it. Okay, fine. Let's forget you and me. Let's say particles, particle 1 and particle 2. Okay, just to make it simple. Okay, let's say particle 1 is dependent on particle 2. Particle 2 is dependent on particle 1. Since they're both dependent, they both could never exist because they depend on each other. How would they come to be?
Does the existence of this iPad depend on my existence? No, it doesn't. You're just assuming that.
No, Mike, I want to take a step back. You said, what if particles are dependent on other particles, right?
Yeah, which I don't mean in terms of existence. I mean the cause and effect of it. But that has nothing to do with existence. This is a separate issue.
Yeah, I'm not talking about cause and effect. I'm talking about existence.
Yeah, and my existence is not. There's nothing in the universe that's contingent that needs something else in order to exist. There is nothing like that.
And what makes you say that? Can you demonstrate?
Do you have an example of something that requires something else to exist?
Well, I actually gave a few examples. You just don't accept them because you think everything is like particles floating around. But this is my point. Even if everything is particles floating around, the summation of particles is still a contingent existence. It's not possible through itself. It still needs something else, something necessary. That's my point.
Why can't the universe just be necessary? Like, we're going in circles. So
because I'm trying to demonstrate how. I don't know, honestly.
Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to talk about before I go? My phone's about to die.
Damn. Okay. Well, I mean, we'll cut to the chase. When it comes to necessary existence, right? I honestly don't think you've adequately refuted the idea that necessary existence must exist. You said maybe it's the universe, maybe it's particles. I've demonstrated how that is actually not possible. That's not feasible, and that they would still be contingent. Just not in the way of causation, because it's not just about causation. Contingency is many things. But let's now go to the necessary existence. If the necessary existence is necessary, it doesn't need anything else, right? But we exist. Contingent existences exist. Now the question that must be asked is why or how. Either the necessary existence willed or decided, or it was forced to. Is there a third option? Either it willed to create or it was forced
the universe, to. Necessary existence could just be necessary. That's it. It doesn't have to have a will or it doesn't have to have a mind. It doesn't have to have a intention. It can just be the way it is.
I agree. It could just be the way it is. But my point is the necessary existence exists irrespective of anything else. But we're contingent and we exist.
You haven't demonstrated that we are contingent in order to exist.
Yes, I have.
Okay, so what are you contingent on in order to exist?
Well, according to you, I'm going to take your worldview because you believe that everything's just particles, right?
Well, yeah, it's not magic, it's particles, but go ahead.
Okay, I never said it was magic, honestly.
But what else is the universe? What else is it?
I'm going to answer the question now. So if everything is just particles, then the entire universe is what? It's a summation of particles. And anything that is subject to being disassembled cannot be necessary. It cannot be. Because if it can exist in another way, then it's not necessary. It can't be. It must be contingent. So even if everything is just particles, okay, khalas, that means like, okay, enough in Arabic, and that's it. Okay, but that doesn't mean it's not contingent. It still needs something that is necessary for it to exist in a closed system.
Yes, and you haven't demonstrated that. That's a great logical assumption, but
that's not an assumption. That's a deduction. That's not an assumption. That's a deduction.
Based on an assumption, you don't have any evidence for.
It's based on first. It's based on first principles.
What's the principle that shows you that my existence is dependent on something else to exist?
I've explained it like multiple times. The universe as a whole.
Yeah.
I have. Okay, you know what? Fine. Well, enough disputing between me and you. We'll let whoever's watching decide. If you have a summation of particles, that summation, whether it's finite or infinite, it's dependent, it's contingent upon the components of it, which could be broken down to every individual particle. So therefore, the entirety of the universe is contingent on these particles. That doesn't mean that the particles are the necessary existence, because if you take one individual particle and remove it from existence, you still have the rest of existence. If you take the summation of particles, they're still contingent on every individual particle. So no matter how you look at it, it's not necessary.
We're not saying one particle is necessary. We're saying that the universe itself is necessary. We're not saying one particle is necessary for everything else to exist. We're saying the entire universe is necessary. Whatever the universe, in my definition, is everything that is and ever will be.
Okay, and that's a perfectly fine definition. And what I said about the universe, even using your worldview that it's just particles, shows that it's impossible. It's
not a worldview. That's what the evidence demonstrates. That we are just particles. We can literally see them and use them and utilize them and play with them.
Okay. So I've used that. I'll call it a fact. Anything. I really don't care. I've used that fact to demonstrate that it cannot be the necessary existence because it itself is still contingent. That's what
Why? And that's what I'm not understanding. I don't know why the universe can't just be contingent on itself as a whole, and I don't see any reason why there must be a necessary existence. So let's move on from this. I got to go, but we'll talk later. I appreciate you having me on. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody that's watching. We'll talk more, and that's it. Anything else you want to say?
Nothing that wouldn't open up another discussion. So, all right, that's enough.
All right. Peace out.
Take care of yourself. See
ya. Appreciate it.
I don't know why he couldn't understand that. But khalas. I tried not to get angry at like some low jabs, some low blows, but khalas, it doesn't matter to me. Yeah, philosophically illiterate. Yeah, and that's why I tried to establish some things from the beginning. I tried to establish that deduction is a viable method. He was hard-headed about it. We finally got to the point where we agreed. And then I said, we can't, I'm going to explain it to you guys in depth, because he didn't want to understand it. So let me explain it. Firstly, if everything that exists is contingent upon something else, is a contingent existence, then nothing would exist. Now, why is this? Why would nothing exist? Because it would never begin. Because the beginning is contingent on something before it. And the beginning of that is contingent on something before it. So it would never be. So therefore, you need something that's necessary. I don't know why that's so hard to understand. He didn't want to admit it. Okay, khalas, he was going back and forth, by the way, but whatever. It is what it is. So we need something that is necessary. Now, what is contingent? What is dependent? Causation. If one thing causes another thing, that causes another thing, that causes another thing, and the first thing was caused, they're all contingent. They couldn't be without another. Therefore, that's one definition of a possible existence. Secondly, if you have a limitation, for example, if I draw a circle, close enough. If I draw a circle, this circle didn't exist until I drew it. It didn't exist till I drew it. But I am also limited. And by the way, that circle is defined by that limitation. Assalamu alaikum musti. That circle is defined by that limitation. Without that limitation of that perimeter, it wouldn't exist. Who made that? I did. I made it. Yes, I drew it myself. I'm very proud of myself. I drew that circle. I'm also limited. What determined my limitations? Because without my limitations, I wouldn't be. What determined my limitations? If something else that's limited determined my limitations, then infinite regression, again, we need something unlimited. Uncaused, unlimited. What else is there? I had a few more. I can go off the top, but I made these notes. I'm going to use them. There's dependency. If something can't exist without something else, is dependent on something else, it's contingent on something else. Same thing. You can't have an infinite regression on that. I've explained it many times. Next. Where is it? Next, if it exists in another way. If something can exist in another way, then it's not necessary. Why is it not necessary? Because it doesn't even have the necessary qualities. Let me explain this. If you can fathom something, one brother Hadi, he gave me an example, a three-headed dragon. Let's say a three-headed dragon was a necessary existence. If you can cut off one of its heads, it's no longer a three-headed dragon. It's a two-headed dragon, which means a three-headed dragon is not necessary. That's the whole point. So if the universe exists in different ways, which it does, then it can't be necessary, because it can't be necessary in and of itself through itself. And the reason it can't be necessary through itself is because it's not necessary in the sense that it maintains one necessary state. If you can fathom it being different, then you fathom the non-existence of the first. For example, let's say the universe, and we took out our sun in our galaxy. There's a universe, we took out our sun. It's no longer the universe. It's the universe now without a sun. So it's different, which means it cannot be necessary. Next, anything that's made of smaller parts. This is very simple. The universe is made of smaller parts. It's contingent on the smaller parts that make up the universe. This is very simple, very straightforward. So if it's dependent, if it's contingent on the of what makes it up to be the universe, it cannot be necessary. It cannot be necessary. And if the entire universe, I'm going to say this one last time, I said it a lot. If the entirety of the universe is only particles, we're not saying, as he was saying, we're not saying one particle is a necessary existence. Okay, I agree. If you remove that one particle, it changes nothing. But if you take all the particles together, you can break them down into individual parts. So the summation of particles is built up of every individual particle. It's contingent upon those particles. And we just established that every individual particle is not the necessary existence. So in its entirety, it's not necessary. And its finitude, its singularity, it's not necessary. What do you have? You have a system, a closed system of the universe that needs something necessary. You need something necessary. There, he couldn't dispute this. He just sat there saying, you know, the universe could be necessary. It could be. I don't know. Come on, man. If you don't know, then why are you here? Come on, let's be real. It's a deductive argument. If the premises are true and the logic is sound, the results will follow. Show me how the premises aren't true. Show me how the logic isn't sound. That's all you had to do. I was trying to be completely nice, which I think I did a good job being nice, alhamdulillah. But I got pretty pissed at some points. I tried to hold it in. Now I'm gonna move on. I want to give you guys the entirety of it. If this necessary existence, it doesn't need anything. It exists in and of itself. It doesn't need anything. So why do we exist? We are contingent upon the necessary existence. It exists in and of itself. We exist because the necessary existence allows us to exist. So how did we come to be? Either one, it was forced, or two, it decided. There is no other option. If it was forced by something else, that doesn't make sense. There's nothing else. The necessary existence cannot be tainted by a contingent existence. Because if it is, then it's not necessary. It's not necessary. If it could be forced, it's not necessary. And if nothing else existed, what is there to push it to do it? It doesn't make sense. If it's internally forced, then it cannot exist without creating a contingent existence. Meaning you can't have a necessary existence without a contingent existence, making the necessary existence contingent. That doesn't make sense. Therefore, you must have a will. It must have decided. Okay, it has a will. It doesn't have intellect. Doesn't have knowledge. Okay, I'm going to challenge that point, that argument that people make. And I know I'm making arguments myself here, but it comes up a lot. If it has a will, then it must have knowledge. Why? Because if it has a will and it decides to do something, then that entails the fact that it must have been aware of the decision. It must have been aware of the decision. And what is awareness? Awareness is knowledge or perception of a situation. If awareness is knowledge and perception of a situation, then it has knowledge, it has perception, it has consciousness, it has a will. It decided and it intellectually created the universe. There is no, or what argument would you bring against that? What argument could you bring against that? So it has a will, it has knowledge, it's conscious, it's aware, and it decided to create the universe. So now I actually made a list of what we end up with. And by the way, I want to explain, you can only have one necessary existence. You can only have one. Because if you have two necessary existences, they're both contingent on each other. Neither of them are necessary. You still have the same problem. So we have one necessary existence. That's eternal. That's infinite. That's independent. That's uncaused. All things that we have proven with this deduction. It created existence in a particular way. So it has a will and it has awareness. And at the same time, let me say this about a will. If you don't accept the necessary existence has a will, then you have no way of answering the question, why does the universe exist in a particular way rather than another way? Why does it exist the way it is and not a different way? Why? If it wasn't a will, you have no answer to this. There had to be something to decide that. Anytime there's specificity, something decided. For example, our DNA, the way I look, is predicated on the way I look is predicated on my DNA. My DNA was a blueprint. My DNA was a sorting agency for how I turn out. What about the entire universe? What was the sorting agency for that? You have no answer. You have no answer if you don't have a will. Therefore, God has a will as well. So he created the existence in a particular way. So it has a will. And because it has a will, it must be aware and conscious. It must have intelligence. It must have knowledge perception, which I just explained. It must have the power or the ability to create. It must have creative capacity, and it cannot exist in any other way. It is separate from all contingent existences, and it's not comparable to them. And as Allah says in Surah Al-Ikhlas, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ Allahu Samad, lam yalad wa lam yulad wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. Say he is God, the one and only. God the self-sufficient. And as-Samad in Arabic means the one that doesn't need anything from everyone, and doesn't need anything from anyone, but everything that exists depends on him. That's what as-Samad means. He does not beget, nor was he begotten, and there is nothing in existence even comparable to him. The Quran describes the necessary existence 1400 years ago. So that's what I wanted to take him through. He couldn't understand that. I don't know why, but he couldn't understand it. So regardless, I know what he's going to do. He's going to take certain clips where he asks a fallacious question and he's going to post it. And he's going to be like, theist, Muslim, God believer stumped by simple question. And blah, blah, blah. This entire thing's going on YouTube. So people can go watch it if they want. They could see how sad he seemed. But I want to leave you guys with something about Islam. Science is based on falsifiability. Jazakallah khair, inshallah. May Allah grant me, goodness and strength, and allow me to be a good da'i, inshallah. Yeah, I think there are many people more qualified than me that would completely, I want to use a nice word, intellectually stump him. But regardless, the Quran and science is based on falsifiability. You make a claim, you can falsify it. The Quran makes 4 claims. Preservation, it will be preserved. Lack of contradiction, there's no contradiction in the Quran. Inimitability, you can't bring one chapter like it. And predictions, the Quran makes predictions. The Prophet ﷺ himself made predictions. I want to really quickly show you guys. Whoa, let me put this down here. For when it comes to prophecies, Yaqeen Institute has an article about prophecies. When it comes to the inimitability of the Quran, this is Surah Al-Kawthar. It's literally 3 verses, 10 words, and it uses like 11 rhetorical devices, a plethora, and this goes in depth on it and how the Quran cannot be replicated, and that claim holds true. And then Muhammad Hijab has holes in the Quran preservation narrative exposed. He shows how the Quran has been preserved. It's very in depth. I think it's still it could still be beginner level because none of it we're all laymen, especially myself. So that's basically that. The Quran has been preserved. We have evidence. There's no contradiction in the Quran. I challenge anyone to bring one. The Quran has not been replicated in the sense that anyone can bring a chapter like it, and this can be actually measured. Literary devices, rhetorical devices, so on and so forth. And the Prophet ﷺ made predictions. He made predictions that could not be known at his time. For example, and by the way, he made multiple of them. He made a multitude of predictions, and all of them have come true. And some scholars say there's only 2 that are still unfolding now. So, Prophet ﷺ, he said there will be a time when women are clothed but naked. Go to the beach, look what you see. Also, go to the gym, look what you see. Right? I mean, not men, women. Men, lower your gaze. Anyways, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that there will come a time, or before the end of times, the barefooted Bedouin Arabic people would compete in building tall towers. Where's the tallest tower in the world? In Dubai, which used to be a desert with Arabic desert dwellers. So that prophecy holds up as well. He predicted plagues. He predicted the conquest of Rome and Persia, which, by the way, Muslims defeating Rome and Persia is like the Eskimos conquering America and Russia. And there's a video that mentioned that. So the Prophet ﷺ, he's demonstrated how he is a true prophet of Allah. And Islam has demonstrated how it's true. Because all the Quran, and I'm going to end on this point, the only thing the Quran has to do is prove that it's divine. If you do that, everything else falls in place. Because everything is based on the Quran. The Sunnah, and taking the Prophet ﷺ as an example, is mentioned in the Quran. So we're good. So with that being said, inshallah, I'll take any questions if there are any comments. And inshallah, then we will end this live stream. I would like to debate you. All right. Your way or Yahweh tested by fire. All right. You can message my Instagram. It's Rami.el-Khalil as seen on the screen here. What did Rami say? What did I say? Christians are here. There are Christians here to debate. Congratulations to them. Yeah, so I mentioned there can't be 2 necessary existences. Because one of the definitions of the necessary existence is if you remove it out of existence, then it affects the rest of existence, right? So if they're both necessary, then neither of them are necessary. They're both contingent, which means you still need a necessary existence. They'd be contingent upon each other. They're contingent upon each other. So that wouldn't hold up. I wonder what you Muslims mean by necessary. We mean that it must exist, that it can't not exist. It exists necessarily through itself. It doesn't need an explanation. It just always was. And we need this because we can't have a world of only possible existences. Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mac. Wa iyyakum. I apologize if I didn't hold up to some of your likings. It's different. I don't know if I did good or bad. To be honest, it's different when you're actually in the debate. I tried to be very nice, but at the end of the day, I don't think he brought anything strong. He just kind of played dumb the whole time. But yeah, I'd prefer to talk to J Mike, who was in here before, Atheist Jesus, or host of Talk Heathen, Truth Heathen. I already forgot. I feel bad, but because I don't think he would make some of the very sad claims and ask the very dumb questions that Mike asked. Is the hair thickness change the more you grow it out? It depends, man. You got to take care of it. I've alhamdulillah been taking care of my hair, so it's pretty good now. But it used to be thinner when it was shorter. So I don't want to say the correlation causation fallacy and say that that's why. But take care of it. The best you could have given the situation. Alhamdulillah. I feel like that's more insulting than anything. Let's not insult people, please. Let's not insult people. Yeah, exactly. J.M. Drake. I should start pinning comments. Let's see. Christian's argument is finished too. I don't know what you're referring to there, but I'm sure they are. Let's see this. Eternal physical existence is also fallacious because event X at time infinite is impossible. What do you mean event X at time infinite is impossible? Can you elaborate on that? My brain can't comprehend. When Rami going to get married? Inshallah soon. It's okay. It's going to be posted, inshallah, on YouTube. How do you reply to an atheist saying that the Quran challenges circular reasoning fallacy? No, it's not. We're not saying the Quran is from God because I don't even know how you would make the argument, to be honest. But we're saying that the Quran makes claims that we can verify irrespective of the Quran. We're not saying this is circular reasoning. The Quran is from God because it claims to be from God. Okay, that's not helpful. If we say the Quran makes claims that are verifiable external from the Quran, irrespective of the Quran, then that's a different story, because we're verifying it how? We're verifying it using external measures, which means it cannot be a circle, because we're not going back to the Quran and saying Quran is true because Quran says so. How do you guys use Zoom to make videos? We bought a Zoom account. We get together, we hit record, we chop it up. Someone said that Allah is the tree in the Quran. Oh my God. Can we call? It's a little abrupt. You can message my Instagram, like I said, at Rami.al-Khalil. What if they say Allah is contingent upon his attributes? That's basically calling him necessary. That's basically calling him necessary. If I'm contingent on myself, then I'm just necessary. But that's not contingent upon myself. That's necessary through myself. If I'm contingent upon myself, I'm not contingent. I'm necessary. So that's, like I said, a lot of the questions that are asked are really fallacious. They're just meant to trick you. Like Sister Milan was saying before. Don't get trapped in fallacious questions, because that's what he was doing when he asked, can God be limited by logic? God is all powerful. As soon as you ask, can he be limited, you've already contradicted yourself. So it's a fallacious question. I hope to accomplish the fact that the necessary existence must exist, and that we're describing the basic definition of God in the Quran, and that It's illogical to believe in to disbelieve in a God type being. It's illogical to believe in a necessary existence. There's no reason to believe in it. Deduction is a very valid form of logic that every single human uses. Every single human uses and presupposes that is true. And I hope to guide people to Islam by the will of Allah alone. It's basically saying the same thing as a question. What do you mean it's basically saying the same thing as a question? I'm lost now. All prophecies the Prophet ﷺ made either happened already or will happen in the future. None of his prophecies were refuted. Exactly. And there were some, like Surah Ar-Rum, specified time. It gave a time frame, 6 to 9 years. That very well could not have happened, but it did. And at that time, the Romans were like basically broken. They were basically broken. And then they ended up bouncing back. Philosophy is an ocean. Either you learn how to surf it and overcome it, or allow yourself to get drowned in the ocean. MashaAllah. Thank you, Musti, for that quote by Musti. You know why there are so many atheists and mostly from non-Muslims? Why? Are you going to say Catholicism? How do you think qadr and free will coexist, bro? So just because Allah wills for something to take place, he allows it to happen, he knows it's going to happen, doesn't mean that he's making us do it. If someone makes the argument that if God knows what I'm going to choose, then he made me do it. You've defeated yourself when you said God knows what I'm going to choose. You've already established that you chose it. And denying free will is really, 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 I would say, moronic. If you deny free will, like you can do any number of things, and you're conscious that you're doing them, but you're not the one who's deciding to do it. It's just so illogical. It's so illogical. And people take the route of determinism and say everything's determined to happen by things that happened before, which seems to be a little more logical when you put it like that. I'm like brain dead right now. It seems to be a little more logical when you put it like that. But Faraz Zahabi, he was talking on a podcast with Joe Rogan. He mentioned that free will and determinism are like two trains that move simultaneously. They work in conjunction. They work together. But you can't say that free will doesn't exist. How do you deny free will? How do you deny that we can choose what to do? But you also can't deny determinism. You can't deny that just certain things happen. They happen once, they happen that way, and that it's like khalas, that's just the chain. So I would say that our free will exists, but it's determined to happen. Our choices are determined to happen, but they're still our choices. I hope that came out right. My bad. I'm like brain dead after that talk. God is not necessary. He could not exist. That's totally okay. The universe wouldn't have existed. So what? Wait, what? God, by definition, is necessary. So that's self-defeating. He could not exist. That's also self-defeating because God can't not exist. That's self-defeating. That's totally okay. Well, it's self-defeating. The universe wouldn't have existed. So what? We do exist. Therefore, necessary existence. Come on, man. Don't make a fool of yourself. Oh, yeah. And see, this is another problem with determinism. If someone says that everything's determined to be, and then their child gets murdered, they can't blame the murderer. They can't blame them. And they must just say that it was determined. I can't blame. They didn't choose to do that. They didn't choose to murder my child. I'm not mad at them. It just happened. I don't think any determinists would bring themselves to that point. They would still blame the individual. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, honestly, you just have to watch for yourself. He kept kind of like dancing around the points, misrepresenting, strawmanning, asking fallacious questions. And I tried to be nice. I tried to be patient. but ultimately we didn't really get anywhere. But you could see his incoherence, his logical incoherence. And that's why I started by demonstrating and by agreeing that logical deduction is a valid method to get to truth. But he just couldn't accept that. You could see he dances around and all this stuff. Wow, most atheists believe in the supernatural. Not this one. Not this one. Can't they also say punishing that person that killed the child is determined also? Yeah, they can say that. They can say that. I'm not saying they can't. I'm saying that they can't blame that person for doing it. But who's not going to blame the person for murdering their child? That's my point. The concept of morality can't exist there objectively. Determinism equals physical free will equals metaphysical. That's why atheists can't believe in free will. That's fair. That's fair. Because I don't think people try and say consciousness is just in their brain and that's it. I feel like, well, I mean, I know some people try and claim that, but it's not. Like, it's predicated on what? Why don't scientific atheists, the really smart ones, professors, why don't they use logical deduction to reach conclusions that we do? Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't want to. Sometimes they don't care. Sometimes people choose to be atheist and it has nothing to do with whether it's logical or not. Like Richard Dawkins, I don't think he cares if believing in God is logical. He just wants to make people atheist. And his dishonesty has been on the public record for a while. And scientists use deduction in science. It's used in science to come to certain conclusions. And everyone uses it in everything. Even Mike tried to use it. He tried to say, science tells us that we can't live to 150. Therefore, Noah, peace be upon him, didn't live to 950 years. That's a deduction. It's based on induction, but still a logical deduction. You take a premise, humans can't live beyond 150 years. Therefore, Noah didn't. All men are mortal. I'm a man, therefore I'm mortal. That's a logical argument. It's based on a premise and sound logic, and you come to a true conclusion. Atheists are not hard people to debate. Stubborn people, ignorant people are hard people to debate. But atheists are not hard to debate. You can have a very sincere atheist, or you can have a very ignorant Christian, Buddhist, anything, agnostic person. And I would take the sincere atheist over anyone. They're all basically arguing the same thing, that you can have a universe that exists without one single God. Atheists believe in none. Trinitarians, I believe 100%, they believe in 3 in 1. Because God cannot be divided into 3 in 1, that they're all God and that Jesus is fully man and fully God. And all of that is fallacious. All of it's fallacious. Hinduism, they believe in one God eternally that's broken down to many gods. That's fallacious. So they're all basically trying to argue the same thing, that the universe can exist without one necessary being that is indivisible, that is uncaused, and so on and so forth. So with that being said, inshallah, I'm going to take one more comment. I'm going to call it a day. And I don't think we need more people like me. I think we need more people better than me, smarter than me, more intelligible than me, more coherent and consistent than me. So may Allah produce more people like that and make us like that. I mean, that's very regressive for a particle to depend upon another particle. He must believe he created himself. If 2 particles are dependent upon each other, they would never exist. It's a fallacy. You're postponing the problem, but the problem is still there. So it's fallacious. So I don't know why he didn't really make an argument, to be honest. He just said, what if this, what if that, and made all these things that are logically fallacious. So with that being said, inshallah, I'm going to end the session. It's been very long. May Allah bless you all. Allahumma atina fid dunya hasana وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.